Lovely. Thank you so much. Hey guys, welcome to the Why We Build podcast. This is our third episode, and this time we are celebrating International Women's Day. We are proud to have an excellent all-star cast of guests for you this time, and they are not just specific to Web3. They are not just people who are working directly in the industry. They are people who are building alongside us. We are proud to say we have Patrícia Santos from Zome, the first real estate company in Portugal to sell a home using Bitcoin. We have Georgiana Bîrdan from E-Gold Women. She is the founder and mother of one of the first women's only associations in the space. And we also have Maria Kazarez from SOAX, who is joining us all the way from Brussels, Belgium. These are amazing builders. These are people who are building right alongside us, even though they aren't working directly with Web3, and they help us understand really how far-reaching and wide this whole ecosystem is and this whole universe is. We are working with people from everywhere. We are working with people who are building in their own necks of the woods. And this is an excellent episode, and I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Let's just get straight to it.
One of the things that the decision that we make, why we wanted to go in on this Web3 world, is that nowadays what we are witnessing is that the world is exponentially growing, a result of thousands of new discoveries and innovations. Yeah. And this is accelerating at a very fast pace. So as William Gibson said once, the future is already here. It's not just...
I love that you're quoting William Gibson. That's amazing.
Embracing Web3 is accepting that the future is already here, and for us to don't miss. So we need to be in this present, and accepting payments in cryptocurrency is making sure that we are in the present in order to don't miss this future. So that's why for us it's also important, because this is a new community. So with this kind of convenient way of making a deal, we are also embracing and allowing us to tap into a new vibrant ecosystem of new clients. So it also gives us this opportunity to embrace a new market for them to be able to exchange. It was the first time when we make our first sell first in Bitcoins. It was the first time that someone could transfer a real digital asset to a real estate asset. So this was opening the door to this kind of transfer. So you cannot just make deals and transferring digital assets between themselves, but you can also transfer the digital assets to the real world. So this is a huge opportunity.
How do you see the future of real estate as technology evolves, not just necessarily payments, but everything else? How do you see it going? Do you see a future? I don't know if you've been aware of things like tokenization or NFTs, etc. How do you feel like these things will play out for real estate?
Well, I don't have any doubts that, blockchain is a very powerful technology, and tokenization, it's something that it's going to happen. And we have already the pilot DLT that is going to start in March. It's going to be possible.
Oh, yeah?
So
it's, right now, that's awesome.
Yes. So it's already here.
Amazing.
It's possible to tokenize it, to make a token from a fund. So we cannot make the tokenization of a real estate, but we can make the tokenization of investment fund. So it's already a starting point. But I think in the future, what we need, and of course it doesn't depend only on private companies, this also needs to involve the government. But the future I see is that we will have at some point all the real estate as a token, so that we can do the deed. Doesn't make sense as it happens nowadays. So we need to have this in a blockchain so that we can have the real estate as a token, and we can make the deed as a smart contract. So everything is much more transparent, much more secure, and that's when we will be able really to combat the fraud that we still have in a lot of countries. So it's the most secure way to make sure that we know all the process and it's transparent, and we know everything that is going on. Even from the construction, as I see it, is that it should start from the construction site.
That's actually interesting. How do you mean? How would these things integrate into construction?
In the construction, if we started when we issued the license for construction, if everything is already record in the blockchain,
Right.
then you can, when you buy the real estate, you could
I
access
see. Okay, so run it through a smart contract from the beginning.
from the beginning. So
That's very
imagine
cool.
the
That's a very
future
interesting
we
idea.
see is that
Yeah.
real estate will have an identity card, like we have our own identity card, so that we can go back on time and we can see every material that was used to construct my house. So
That's actually a very interesting use case. Is do you have plans to execute that as you're describing this to me in the next few years, or are these just ideas
now,
that you
it's
have?
ideas, of course, that I'm trying to influence them, because it doesn't depend only on privates. As I
Of
said,
course.
these must be implemented from the government. But
What kind of regulation would you like to see being passed, for example, in Portugal regarding these matters? What do
well,
you think are the priorities? Because I always feel like legislators are sort of dragging their feet when it comes to these new technologies. I don't know if it's because they're a little scared, they don't understand them fully,
yeah,
they don't trust the market. I don't know what is the reason for this, but
yeah. I think
what kind of legislation
yeah, I
would
think
you like to see
the
implemented?
issue at the moment is there is not enough awareness about the
Mm.
technology. And usually, when we talk about blockchain, everyone connects with the crypto, the
Yeah, and with the speculative market, and green
Bitcoin.
line goes up, red line goes down. Yeah.
Yeah, with fraud, with well, everything bad. So I think that is the first thing that we need to do is give more awareness to the politicals and to the government about
Hmm.
this technology. So
Right.
it's necessary for all these communities that are growing, fortunately, in Portugal, and giving this awareness to for everyone. For example, when we made the first deal in Bitcoins, uh,
Yeah,
we were very exposed to this. A lot of people were saying that, oh,
I
okay,
remember.
this is not a good deal. Oh, okay, he didn't pay the taxes. Oh, so there was a lot of people trying to say that this was not secure, this was a fraud. So because they don't understand the technology
Yeah.
making a difference between Bitcoin, that this is not speculation, this is not money laundering. So it needs to be very explained
Yeah.
the potential of the technology.
This is
So
also why we're doing podcasts like this,
yeah,
is because I feel like a lot of the information that comes from the crypto industry is either technical or going through product and technology, whatever. But there's not enough focus on why we are doing this. What problems are we trying to fix? A lot of the criticism that sometimes we get is about this, that we are a solution looking for a problem, and it's not true. We
and
A
people
lot of companies like ours have a clearly identified market fit, and we know exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it. So it's lovely to bring in people like yourself who are actively using this technology and can give a real world perspective on why we are doing this, why this can improve on such an ancient industry like real estate that hasn't existed forever, how
Mhm.
it can definitely be improved and worked upon
Yeah,
by
can
these new
improve
technologies.
in an exponential way. The problem is that the people only see the bad news every
Right.
time that there is a crash on the crypto market. Oh my God! Even today, the deal was in May, and even today on LinkedIn, I have sometimes comments saying that, oh, the seller should be crying, oh, because Bitcoin's now, oh, doesn't. So there was a devaluation of the Bitcoin. So they are focused on the wrong thing, as
Yeah.
I tell them that the focus should not be on the Bitcoin, how much it works now. It's the door that we have open. And
Yeah.
when we talk about blockchain, we talk about creating ecosystems. So when we
Exactly.
talk about real estate, We talk about the interaction of a lot of entities. We talk about the bank, we talk about insurance, we talk about a lot of repair companies. So I could, well, say a lot of companies that need to interact with the client, with the person that buys the house. So if we use this kind of technology, once that I buy the house, or once that I say I'm interested in this house, I could be receiving instantaneously quotations from banks, for example, for loans. I could be receiving instantaneously quotations for insurance. I could
Absolutely.
receiving, for example, if I'm buying a house, I don't know, maybe I could buy also a car. So even the car industry could be connected to this blockchain. So it's an ecosystem. And maybe if I'm buying a house with a garden, maybe I'm going to need someone to make the maintenance of the garden. If the house has a pool, maybe I'm going to need someone that gives the service on maintaining the pool. So there is a lot of companies that if we use this kind of technology, we can create an ecosystem that it's going to give much more convenience to the client that's buying the house, because in one platform I can have access to all these services, and everyone is working for me in order for me to have the best services possible with less fees, much more cheaper, and much more fast, and with a lot of transparency on the process.
That's exactly right. That's actually a very, very good way of putting it. And I am absolutely sure that when our social media manager sees this interview, she is going to clip that right into TikTok. So you can expect to see it. That small clip, you can expect to see it again many times.
I hope governments also see this, so they understand why it's
Yep.
very important for them to start implementing this kind of technology in the government, because it's not a question of regulation, it's more a question for having the government itself to giving the example and implementing
Yes.
this kind of technology, because
No, absolutely. I mean,
they
a lot
do.
of people in the sector are super anti-government and anti-legislation, and they will have their reasons. But in the real world, the credibility that legislation provides and the security that people feel
Yeah.
when they know that the authorities understand what is happening and are monitoring what is happening, and there's a specific regulatory framework that they can relate to,
Yeah.
that's essential to run a business. You can't run a business if you don't have that. So, yeah, we definitely are on the same page in regards to that. We do hope that there is a lot more sensible and reasonable legislation coming out for this sector, so that yeah, the businesses can move on with their activities and get things done.
Yeah, sure. I think
Patricia, thank you so much for your time. This was a lovely interview, and like I said in the beginning, this podcast is going to be seen by thousands of people all over our platforms. So if you want to leave a message for our community from Zome, from yourself, please take a few seconds now to do so.
Well, my message is also, well, first, as we are doing something on the Women's Day, I would like to
Yeah.
give a message to all the women to believe in themselves and believe that they can be whatever they want, and don't be afraid to go for every dreams you are looking for. Regarding the community of Web3 and all the enthusiasts of this new world, I would like to say that yes, there is a lot of potential, and I think that we all have this. Not obligation, but this duty of giving more awareness for everyone to understand much better the potentiality of Web3, of blockchain, so that we can really change the world and make it grow in a more exponential way, and make it more convenient to all of us. For us, it was a big change to open this door and to start this partnership with Ep.3. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Thank you so much for your time. And we hope to see you again in the podcast in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
But may I ask also regarding your experience with Web3 and blockchain and crypto, etc. How did you come by it? How did you become interested in the theme?
Well, SOAX, the main focus area is aiming at making sure people get access at all publicly available data. So proxies
Right.
is the kind of the core bit of this idea. So, and I think Web3 is all about decentralization, and proxies being the main, one of the main engines for that. So I find the whole idea of decentralization, I find it very fascinating and interesting, though with all the regulation coming in, and then again, different countries, the fact that people can't restructure their, like with the internet being global, it's very hard for people think globally as well, because whenever it comes to regulation or legislation, it falls down under each particular country, and therefore
That's true.
people are trying to find a way around it. However, the whole concept of being global is not being tied by one country, but again, with someone always wanting to be the main kind of person in the room, it's very hard. I think the whole idea is actually quite challenging. I don't know.
It is, but I also think that it's been an interesting process to keep up with how the legislative effort has been regarding Web3, regarding blockchain, regarding cryptocurrencies, because I think a lot of legislators are also struggling with the idea that it's very hard to legislate the internet, because it's almost impossible to find a legislative framework that is going to be actually enforced, because you can put anything into law. If you can't actually execute the legislation, then it's pointless. I feel like a lot of the reason why it's taking so long for legislation to appear and for regulation to appear is that people have no idea how to actually control the flow of information on the blockchain, and that's actually a problem. It's actually a problem, because companies like Utrust and xMoney and MultiversX, who are fully compliant and who actually have whole departments just entirely dedicated to making sure that we are within the law of every territory that we operate in, which is pretty much all territories. It's a challenge, because a lot of places just have no rules, just have no legislation, and it's even sometimes it's hard to speak to merchants like yourself, because they prefer places that are decently regulated, and they prefer when they know exactly what the framework is, and often there isn't one.
But I think it's an issue like that, because like technology is being created by people who very rarely create regulations, and vice versa. People who create regulations, they don't create technology. Yep. And therefore, I think
and people who actually have the conflicting visions of the whole thing. It's like people who are creating the technology hate legislation. They want no legislation. They want everything to be entirely free and open, which is impossible. And the people who create legislation dislike things they don't fully understand, and industries that are new and whose impact is not exactly clear. So often they are hostile to each other, when ideally they should be cooperating and figuring out what the best frameworks are.
Well, ideally, but like that's the world. Like just an example, because you mentioned COVID in the beginning and the lockdown. Me personally, I was very frustrated by the humanity for not uniting against one enemy that we had, because like we had a perfect way to unite and conquer one thing together. But what did people do? They just kind of deglobalized, locked down, closed the borders, imposed more regulations, and to me, it was very confusing. So I don't know.
It was confusing, particularly in large countries like the US, where there are no borders and there could never be any borders between states. and yet states had completely different COVID legislations and COVID regulations, and people were just moving around from completely different regulatory frameworks, like from one town to the next, which made everything chaotic and very hard to follow.
Yeah, and then there is always someone who wants to control everything. Even you mentioned, like, but how do we control that? But, like, do we need to?
No, absolutely. I'm not. My point is not that we should. My point is that when you are legislating, a lot of the objective is to maintain a degree of control, and on the internet, that's extremely hard. That's
That's
extremely hard.
extremely hard. But then
Yeah.
again, if it's so hard, I always wonder, should we be fighting it or should we be heading it? Like, if it's so hard, maybe we need to reimagine the whole kind of universe as such, rather than
Yeah.
trying to fit this universe into the framework of kind of the old one.
No,
Again,
there's definitely an argument for that we can't think of legislation in the digital space in the same terms as we think of legislation in the physical space, because they have such different dynamics. But I also understand the challenge in the sense that as our lives become more digital and as we start spending more time on the internet and we start doing more of what we used to do in the physical world in, let's say, meta spaces, and not to use the term metaverse lightly, it also becomes clear that what happens in these spaces and the decisions that are made in these spaces affect our day-to-day lives. So the idea of just, foregoing any sort of democratic control, and it's also, it would be a very, very, very traumatic paradigm shift, because I don't think we're organized to do so.
no, we are not.
Um,
We are not. That's that's for sure. But it's just, I think the whole all problems, they stem from very underlying basic ways how we are used to do stuff, rather
Absolutely.
rather than changing that. Like, for example, with SOAX again,
Hmm.
we in like since March we are now having 4 working day week, and
Okay.
last week was the first one. You can't imagine how challenging it was. Like, when you take a day off on Friday by
Hmm.
yourself, but your colleagues are working, that's kind of fun. Well, fine with you, but
Someone
like
is there.
last Friday, when it was very silent, but my partner was working, like my friends were working, it's like as if I was missing school, as if I was ditching school lessons, and were scared that my teachers call my parents. It's like
Yeah, someone's gonna find out.
we are speaking about decentralized internet and changing the paradigm, but it's
Hmm.
so hard to change even that. You're so used to being that pattern of
Yeah, yeah,
five
yeah, yeah,
days, then it's like four.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
I mean, making huge changes does. I don't think we are built for huge, traumatic, revolutionary change. I think we deal better with knowing where we stand and how things work, and then we change bit by bit. But sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes an innovation is just so groundbreaking that you have to go for a big change and then deal with the fallout. And also, particularly, she is the founder and mother of the formerly known as Eagle Women and now Women of MultiversX. And that's where we're going to start, I think. Georgiana, can you tell me a little bit about this project
Of
and
course.
why it's so important
Thank
to
you
you?
very much, firstly, for the opportunity of being here. It's nice to meet you. Um, well,
Of course.
everything started like from personal experience, because I think most things start from this thing, from a personal experience. I felt the need to have a hub in which to connect with women already in Web3, or learning, or to be there
Hmm.
involved in order to make my learning experience easier. I was already in Web3, part of the NFTR market, as you mentioned, and I was surrounded only by men, and sometimes we need to be also with somebody else, like to have more common things with us, because sometimes maybe we need to ask some things without, I don't know, being ashamed or so on, or without being going too quickly, because we are diverse. Like some people are introvert or so on, so they can't go that fast with the thing. So this is how it started, kind of.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because I hear that from women in leadership often, is the idea that they can't be as open and as transparent with men in such a male dominated field. Why do you feel like that is? Why? Meaning, let me be more clear. Like, as a man working in the same area, how can I make that process easier? How can I make that
I believe
less
it's
complicated?
everything about the communication between parts, like assuring the other that I am here if you have any questions, like to show that openness. Because sometimes this is maybe something that stops us,
Mhm.
because imagine an office full of men and just one woman, all eyes are on you, and like you
Right.
somehow you have to be careful on what to do and so on. But in the same time, working men and women, it's a great thing, like for cooperation, for brainstorming, because as we are diverse, we can come up with
Mhm.
greater final things, and to conclude, yeah, better solution, yes.
Yeah, better solutions, right? And now, may I ask you about MultiversX in specific? What attracted you to this environment? Why are you building here instead of on Ethereum or elsewhere? Why is MultiversX your chosen
I
environment to
was
work
first introduced to MultiversX by the team of NFTR Market, and
in? Hmm.
firstly I fell in love with the project on how what they wanted to build, and because it's super community based and so on. And then I dived deep into what multiverse
Yeah.
x has to offer, and like from the feeds, from the speed, and also maybe because it's a link that they're Romanian as well, I don't know. But it's about the technology and the vision that I have. And I liked especially because I saw
Hmm.
something personal in there, like was not like, I knew that they are dedicated to working and building all these years and not going to stop with plans, with proper plans for the future. Like
Hmm.
they say, I want to do this, we want to do that and that. So for me, especially to go in a project or to build within a space, it's important to understand that
Hmm.
they want to be here for a long time, not only for 2 years or so on. So yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of aspiration in the space, isn't it? Isn't there in the multiverse space? It's inspiring sometimes to to hear Benjamin or any of the guys talk about not just what we're doing now, but what we're going to aspire to do in the future. So I totally understand that part. Um, I don't know if you are aware as well of what we're doing with xMoney and how it integrates into the whole multiverse X narrative, etc. But I may as well ask you, what do you feel is the role of payments and the way crypto has made it easier and more borderless, etc., to make payments and to make money flow for the creation of
It's an
these new
important
worlds.
aspect, and it's important to be somebody there that can, as you guys are doing, you also educate the people, right, with your posts and so on. So it's important to
Right.
have an integrated part that's specialized on that, because we, in order to build what we want to build, we have to have um
Mhm.
some powers, let's say like this, that they are only on that thing. So in order for us to educate ourselves on the
Right.
financial thing, because as we know is a decentralized world, so we have to understand how these funds are going, how they are flowing, how can I do that and so on, how can we talk about fiat and so
Mhm.
on. So it's really an essential part of everything, because after all, we as we know web 2 and the physical world, in order to understand something that's more visionary, future like, we have to kind of make a comparison with the real world in order to help us in our understanding process.
Yeah, of course. Because I'll be honest with you, this is one of the things that I feel like makes Web 2 cap. It makes Web 2 have a ceiling, is because the people who are creating the truly interesting things in Web 2, the people who drive us to be in these Web 2 apps, the reason why you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, you're wherever you are in these large platforms, aren't getting paid. They are getting no money for the content they are producing. They own nothing. And I speak for myself. I don't have large influencer like platforms at all, but I do spend a fair amount of time on Twitter, for example. That's how I got into this work, even. And I am getting nothing for everything I write on Twitter. And my ramblings are irrelevant, but there's a lot of people on Twitter who are actually writing some very interesting things. And if I say Twitter, I'll say anywhere. And the platforms that actually do allow you to make a living are basically YouTube and Twitch. They are the only two that I can think of where you can actually make a living solely through your digital creation. And that's wildly unfair, I think. And that's one of the reasons I think Web3 needs to exist and needs to be built, and needs to be built well, so that people can own their digital lives and people can own the things they put out there, and be in command of them, which for all intents and purposes means also to
Yes.
be economically in command of them. I don't know if you agree. I don't know if you have
I
any
totally
thoughts
agree,
on this as
because
well.
if you want to be in charge of your own finances, to fully acknowledge all Web3 has to offer to you and so on, it all comes to the basic financial uh,
Hmm.
education and how to implement it. So, giving the fact that you could be the owner and you could have your own work rewarded, what in Web2 you cannot do, it's an important aspect.
Of course. So, Georgiana, thank you so much for being here. I think I've covered everything that I set out to cover with you. Before I end the interview, though, I always ask my guests if there's anything they want to say, anything they want to tell, like the Money community. There's hundreds of people are going to be watching this. We are going to put this episode everywhere. It's going to be on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, everywhere we can put it. So, if you want to leave a message for them, for either from any of your projects, if you want to say anything, just please take a few minutes
Okay.
to do
I
that.
would just like to say to everybody that um, our purpose in here in the community is to really connect with each other and to help layering that development of each person. So even though we're addressing with this project Women of MultiversX to women, we're also addressing to the
Mhm.
other people in order to acknowledge the importance of diversity and including other type of people. And also this is why we are developing a new phase of it, and we will be developing xemploy.io, which will be a hiring platform but a community app. So
Mhm.
it would be, as I said, community driven, because in the end this is what we have to do, because as we all know, you cannot go Web3 without a community. You cannot, you have to be connected. Like the
No,
customer
it's
service,
impossible.
it's super important for it. So I think this is what we should keep in mind, that we are here together in this.